Let's stay in the Sunshine State. Let's go to Tallahassee, where Florida State has named James Blackman the starting quarterback, beating out Wisconsin transfer Alex Hornibrook. Remember, he was thrown into the fire a couple of years ago. You had DeAndre Francois go down to an injury in that first game against Alabama. And then Blackman got the job, then lost it last year, only had one start. You see this graphic with the recruiting class rankings and what he was able to do in that one start last season. But he did get the starting job back. That is proof that not all quarterbacks that lose the job go on to transfer. He hung tough, hung in there. The question, though, is after a losing season last year, Greg, is Florida State going bowling this year?
Well, I like James Blackman's upside. The unfortunate thing is 2 years ago, he was thrust into a situation where he wasn't ready. He was 6'4", 6'5", and 175 pounds. And that's just not the physique that you need to endure what is a 12-game regular season in college football. But there were some real nice highlights throughout the course of his true freshman year. He was supposed to redshirt. He was supposed to be the third-string guy. DeAndre Francois gets hurt. One guy gets kicked off the team, and he's thrust into what was an impossible spot behind a very leaky offensive line. It's going to really come down to whether or not James Blackman and this offense can get going. I expect the defense to be solid. They still have athletes on that side of the football. They still have talent on the defensive side of the football, especially with the way they've recruited. But Kendall Briles, the new offensive coordinator for Florida State, he's really tasked with jump-starting this offense. He's going to simplify things. He's going to put the onus on the skill positions while still continuing to hold the run game in high regard. So I'm optimistic about Florida State, but they have to come out of the gate strong against Boise, and that's a very capable Group of 5 opponent.
Yep, and a Boise State team who's going to start a true freshman quarterback, and so that Florida State defense will have a chance to help. No surprise here, I'm going to focus on the offensive line. It was dreadful for Florida State last season, and usually you can say, well, you had a bunch of young guys that went in there, they got experience, and experience is the mother of all currency on the offensive line. Not necessarily, but in this case, because you get Kendall Briles coming over, and that also means a new offensive line coach in Randy Clements. And I think some of that newness, a new approach, and really putting last year in the rearview mirror as quickly as they can, a combination of injury, poor recruiting at that position that have all been erased. They've built up competitive depth at that spot. If they can manage to stay healthy in a way that was impossible for them last year, there's nowhere to go but up at that position. And starting at 5-7 as your base from last year, I think they're absolutely a bowl team this season.
They're going bowling, man. I mean, look, first time in 36 years they didn't make it. That's a rough start for Willie Taggart. They're going up. They have too much talent to be a sub-500 football team. I think James Blackman will be better than he was as a true freshman. Remember, he started the game last year against NC State, put up good numbers, over 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, just 1 interception. I think what Golick said is 100% right. The biggest problem with this football team last season was their offensive line. It was abysmal. It has to be better. How about get Cam Akers going, a very talented running back that they have? That's going to help Blackman. That's going to help this offense quite a bit. The defense will be strong enough, and I do like Kendall Briles coming over. And the thing about Kendall Briles, going back to Baylor or his time at Florida Atlantic, it's a run-first offense. They spread the field. They get outside the numbers with their receivers, but it's power football between the tackles. My guess is that's where Florida State wants to get back to, and they will get back to a bowl game.
Hard to believe we're asking the question about Florida State. Will they go to a bowl game? First time in, 40 years that they finished with a losing record last year. By the way, 7 Eastern Saturday night, Florida State, Boise State on ESPN. Greg McElroy.